At Buffalo City Hall, where the Common Council is taking the first steps that could eventually help parents better protect their kids. Lawmakers just adopting a resolution that begins a discussion with the police department and the school district that could ultimately create new ID cards for children. Now, the proposed ID cards would include things like the child's photo, eye color, height, and weight. They could prove useful to investigators if a child goes missing or runs away. We report those stories when police ask for the public's help in finding a missing child, and of course it happens all too often. Joining me live right now to talk about this is Buffalo Common Councilmember Rasheed Wyatt, who introduced that resolution. Appreciate you coming in to talk to us about this. And I know this sort of dates back to a previous discussion during budget talks, right? And this kind of came up. Tell us the evolution of this idea and where things stand.
Well, Karima Morris, who's founder of Bury the Violence, and Kelly Diane, who's from Mona's House, had this conversation, and they've been working with the police department trying to assist in finding children who are missing. And so we looked at, what could we do as a city to address that issue? I know years ago we used to have the ID cards and we'd have the fingerprinting, and that stopped. So I thought this was a good time to reintroduce that, especially since we have partners who are very much interested in being a part of solving this issue and making sure that when a child goes missing, there's information available immediately to help law enforcement or others to find that child. So we thought it was a good time to bring this up. And again, those ladies brought this up, and I'm thankful that we have an engaged public to address these type of issues.
I describe this as sort of a first step, right? Because you passed a resolution today to begin this. But there are a lot of different players, right?
Right.
The police department, the city school district. This will be for all city children, right?
Yes.
But the school district is a good avenue through which you could implement something like that. So tell me about how this is the first step and what happens next.
Well, this is going to go to the Police Oversight Committee, in which we'll invite the police department along with the Board of Education to talk about how we can go about doing this, because I'm really hopeful that we can have this in place by September. But again, as they say, the devil's in the details. What dollars may have to be spent. How did we do it before? Because when we used to have this, I don't know how it was funded, but certainly there's not a dollar amount that we can talk about that is more important to keeping a child safe. I think that that's just on the table. We have to do what we have to do. But I think that there's some things in place, like the children get these pictures every year. I think it's Life Touch that does these pictures. There's an opportunity to work with Life Touch, because the kids get pictures every year, to work with that identity to make sure we have an updated photo of that child to, again, if the situation occurs, we have information that we can give to law enforcement and others to find that child.
Anytime you're talking about the private information of a child, there will be some who wonder, about safeguards and all of that. How has that factored into the conversation in making sure that this isn't, violating the privacy of any children? Or anything?
Well, again, I go back to what we used to do. I remember when I had to do this for my children, there was a parent sign-off that the parent had to okay this. And I don't know if there's any parent that wouldn't want this for their child, just in case something happens. If it happens, you have that information right at your fingertips, because you don't have time to scramble around, get pictures and all that, and you're going through a panic. So this is something that, just in case, you have it readily available. It's some updated information, and again, it helps law enforcement to do what they need to do in finding that child.
We talk so much about the downside of social media, right? But this is an instance in which, the Buffalo Police Department has a Facebook page with a lot of followers, and they can put something like this out there. I know there is the concern of like the boy who cried wolf, if there are too many runaways, and when do you decide when you should put this out to the public and ask for the public's help? It's not an easy thing to figure out, but this seems like an important part of that conversation. So at least when it does rise to the level where police are saying, hey, we need your help, they sort of have these tools to do what they need to do.
And I think that can further the conversation to refine how we go about doing it. The police aren't in a vacuum by themselves. We have other groups that are involved, and we can have that conversation to really streamline it, to make sure it's not that situation where someone is crying wolf. But again, without having the conversation, we don't even get there.
Yeah, so Police Oversight Committee is next.
Yes.
You anticipate, the committee is where you really get into like the nitty gritty for all this stuff, right? And so once you come through that, you'll have a sense of what this is going to look like.
Yes, and Dr. Caresses was there at the meeting, the council meeting today, so I'm sure he'll be talking to the superintendent, and we'll have some further conversation with some of the board members just to kind of get them included in, because this is something, again, I think that is near and dear to our hearts, to make sure our children are safe, and who would deny us moving forward and trying to, again, it seems like every other day to hear about a missing child. let's do something about it.
Absolutely. It happens way too often, and anything we can do makes a lot of sense. Councilman Rasheed Wyatt, who sponsored the resolution that passed today to begin all of this. Thanks for coming in and helping us understand this.
Thank you,
Good to
Michael.
see you.